we start, I need you to listen carefully. Not because this video is entertaining, not because it sounds smart, but because something is happening to you right now, quietly, slowly, every single day. You are not losing money. You are not losing time. You are losing your mind. Not in a dramatic way, not in a hospital way, but in a silent, modern way that no one warns you about. Your memory is weaker than it used to be. Your focus breaks faster. Your thoughts feel heavier, slower, harder to hold. You read a sentence and forget it. You walk into a room and forget why. You open your phone and lose 30 minutes without noticing. Life starts to feel dull, blurry, loud, but empty. You don't panic because everyone around you feels the same. You tell yourself it's age. You blame stress. You say it's normal. But deep down, you know something is wrong. This is not wisdom. This is not maturity. This is decay. This is brain rot. And brain rot does not arrive like an accident. It arrives like comfort, like routine, like endless scrolling. It arrives when nothing challenges you anymore, when nothing demands your full attention, when your brain is fed noise instead of meaning. If you don't stop it now, you won't wake up one day and suddenly fix it. There is no alarm, no warning sign. You simply become someone who reacts instead of thinks, scrolls instead of creates, survives instead of lives. This video is not for people who want comfort. It is for people who want their mind back. And while you rebuild your brain, you will also train your English, your listening, your thinking, your confidence. This is not just a video. This is a fight. Let's begin. Before habits, you must understand one rule. The brain stays young only when it is forced to adapt, not when it is comfortable, not when it is entertained, but when it is challenged. This is not motivation. This is biology. From childhood to old age, the brain survives by changing itself. When life demands effort, the brain rewires. When life becomes easy, the brain saves energy and shuts doors inside itself. Your brain is not fragile. It does not break from effort. It breaks from boredom. It breaks from repetition. It breaks from days that feel exactly the same. The brain is designed to adapt, but only if you give it a reason. Here is the hidden truth most people never hear. The brain always chooses the easiest path. Always. It avoids pain. It avoids confusion. It avoids difficulty. That is not weakness. That is efficiency. Your brain's job is to protect you and save energy, not to make you strong, sharp, or intelligent. If you let it, your brain will slowly turn your life into autopilot. Same thoughts, same habits, same reactions. Over time, this feels safe, but safety without challenge becomes decay. This is how mental aging begins, long before the body looks old. Think about muscles. If you stop using them, they shrink, not because they are broken, but because they are unused. The brain works the same way. No challenge means no signal to grow. No struggle means no reason to stay sharp. That is why comfort is dangerous. Endless entertainment, endless scrolling, endless routines. They feel harmless, but they quietly train the brain to stop adapting. And a brain that stops adapting starts dying, slowly and silently. This is why the habits in this video are not tips. Tips are optional. Tips are nice ideas you forget tomorrow. These habits are weapons. They exist to force adaptation, to create friction, to make your brain uncomfortable on purpose. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the message that says something is changing, something is growing. Every habit you will hear is designed to wake the brain up, to remind it that life still demands effort. If you want a young brain, you must stop protecting it from difficulty. You must challenge it daily, deliberately, and without excuses. Because the brain that is forced to adapt stays alive. The brain that is always comfortable slowly shuts itself down. And this rule has never changed across history or technology. Tools evolve, habits change, but the brain follows the same law. Adapt or decay. Challenge or fade. Youth is not a number, it is a response to pressure. When pressure disappears, youth disappears with it. Understanding this rule is the foundation. Without it, habits fail. With it, effort makes sense. You stop asking for motivation and start accepting discomfort as the price of staying mentally alive. Ignore this rule and nothing changes. Apply it daily and the brain responds, grows, sharpens, and survives against time, comfort, and mental decay. Habits that rebuild the brain itself. Habit 1. Use your non-dominant hand. The brain grows when it feels awkward. When you use the wrong hand, your brain wakes up and says, "This is new, I must work." That moment of discomfort is not a problem, it is a signal. It is the brain being forced out of autopilot and back into awareness. Most people live their entire lives using the same hand for everything: writing, eating, brushing teeth, opening doors. These actions become automatic, and automatic actions require almost no brain energy. That sounds efficient, but efficiency without challenge creates stagnation. When you switch to your non-dominant hand, something interesting happens. Simple tasks suddenly feel slow, clumsy, and frustrating. Your hand shakes, you spill things, you feel annoyed. That frustration is not failure. It is neuroplasticity activating. Your brain is building new pathways because the old ones are no longer enough. Inside your brain, billions of neurons communicate through connections. When a task is familiar, the same old connections fire. When a task is unfamiliar, the brain must search for new routes. That search is effort. That effort is growth. Scientists have shown that learning unfamiliar movements forces the brain to reorganize itself, even in adults. This matters because brain aging is not about time, it is about repetition. When your life becomes predictable, your brain stops adapting. Using your non-dominant hand breaks prediction. It tells the brain that the environment is not fully safe or known, and the brain responds by waking up. This is why the habit feels uncomfortable. Comfort means the brain already knows what to do. Awkwardness means learning is happening. Children learn fast because everything feels awkward to them. Adults stop learning because they avoid that feeling. Using your non-dominant hand is a simple way to bring that feeling back. You do not need special tools. You do not need talent. You only need willingness to look foolish for a moment. That willingness is the price of mental youth. Start small. Brush your teeth with the other hand. Eat a meal slowly. Open doors differently. Write a few words. You are not training the hand, you are training the brain to stay flexible instead of rigid. Over time, this habit strengthens attention, coordination, and mental agility. More importantly, it changes your identity. You stop avoiding discomfort. You stop choosing the easy path automatically. You remind your brain that growth is still required. A brain that is never confused becomes dull. A brain that is challenged stays alive. Using your non-dominant hand is not a trick. It is a daily reminder that awkwardness is not weakness. Awkwardness is the doorway to adaptation, resilience, and a mind that refuses to age quietly. Done daily, this habit quietly compounds. Each awkward movement adds pressure, and pressure creates change. Over weeks, the brain becomes quicker to adapt elsewhere too. You think faster, notice more, and resist mental stiffness. One small habit becomes proof that youth is practiced, not preserved. This lesson applies far beyond hands and into everyday thinking choices everywhere. Habit 2. Do something you are bad at. Your brain doesn't grow when you win. It grows when you fail and continue. Learn, suffer, repeat. That is how new brain pathways are built. Most people build their lives around what they are already good at. They repeat the same skills, the same roles, the same strengths because success feels safe. Winning feels good. Looking competent feels comfortable. But comfort is not growth. Comfort is maintenance, and maintenance slowly turns into mental decline. When you do something you are bad at, your brain enters a state it tries to avoid. Confusion, uncertainty, mistakes. You feel slow. You feel stupid. Your ego feels threatened. This is exactly the moment when real learning begins. The brain is forced to pay attention because prediction no longer works. Failure is not damage. Failure is feedback. Each mistake sends a signal to the brain saying, this pathway is not enough, find another one. When you quit at that moment, the signal dies. When you continue, the brain adapts. That adaptation is neuroplasticity in action. Think about how children learn. They fall, miss, fail, and try again thousands of times. They don't protect their image. They don't avoid looking bad. Adults do the opposite. Adults avoid failure at all costs, and in doing so, they avoid growth. Doing something you are bad at forces the brain to slow down and rebuild from the ground up. New neurons fire together. Old shortcuts stop working. The brain must create fresh connections to survive the task. This process is uncomfortable, but it is the exact process that keeps the brain young. This habit is not about talent. It is about exposure. You do not need to become great at the skill. You only need to stay long enough inside the struggle for the brain to adapt. Playing an instrument poorly, speaking a language badly, drawing terribly, dancing awkwardly. All of these push the brain into learning mode. Your ego will resist. It will tell you to stop. It will tell you that you are wasting time. That voice is not wisdom, it is fear of discomfort. And every time you obey it, your brain learns one lesson: avoid difficulty, stay small. When you continue despite failure, something shifts. The brain becomes more resilient. It stops panicking when things are hard. It learns that confusion is temporary. Over time, this reduces anxiety, improves focus, and increases mental endurance. This habit also changes how you face life. Problems feel less threatening. Challenges feel more manageable. You stop needing instant success to stay motivated. You understand that progress lives inside repetition, not perfection. Doing what you are bad at is not about humiliation. It is about humility. It reminds the brain that learning is a lifelong process. Learn, suffer, repeat. Not endlessly, but deliberately. Each session tells your brain that growth is still required. As long as you choose struggle over comfort, your brain remains awake, flexible, and capable of growth, refusing to shrink into routine, fear, and mental stagnation. Daily. Change your routine. Same morning, same road, same food. That's not stability. That's mental death. A brain that sees the same patterns every day stops paying attention. Attention fades first, then curiosity, then memory. What feels like comfort is actually decay happening slowly. Routine exists to save energy. The brain loves routines because they reduce effort. When everything is predictable, the brain relaxes and goes quiet. This is useful for survival, but dangerous for growth. A quiet brain does not adapt, it repeats. When your days look identical, your brain switches to autopilot. You wake up, move, eat, work, scroll, sleep, and repeat without awareness. Time feels faster because nothing stands out. Memory weakens because the brain records only change, not repetition. This is why small changes matter. You do not need a new life, you need new signals. Changing your routine shocks the brain out of prediction mode. It forces attention back online. When attention returns, learning returns. Think about travel. New places feel vivid. Colors look brighter. Sounds feel sharper. time feels slower. That is not vacation magic. That is your brain waking up because it cannot predict what comes next. Novelty activates neural circuits responsible for awareness and memory. You can recreate this effect without leaving your city. Take a different route. Eat something unfamiliar. Change the order of your morning. Sit in a new place. Wear something unusual. These small disruptions tell the brain that the environment is changing and adaptation is required. At first, these changes feel unnecessary, even annoying. That reaction is important. It means the brain prefers the old path. When you push past that resistance, you force flexibility. Flexibility is youth. Routine without variation trains rigidity. Rigidity leads to boredom, and boredom is not harmless. Boredom is a warning sign that the brain is underused. Over time, underuse leads to mental stiffness, slower thinking, and emotional flatness. Changing your routine also breaks emotional patterns. New behaviors create new moods. New moods create new thoughts. This is why people feel stuck when their routines never change. Their brain keeps producing the same emotional responses because nothing challenges them. This habit is not about chaos. It is about controlled disruption. You choose small changes on purpose, so life does not become a loop you slowly disappear inside. When you change your routine, you tell your brain one thing: stay awake, stay flexible, stay alive. Do this daily, not dramatically, consistently. Let small changes accumulate. Over time, your brain becomes quicker, more alert, and more resilient. Youth returns not because time reversed, but because adaptation resumed. A changing life keeps a changing brain, and a changing brain refuses to die quietly. Every change is a signal. Every signal is a demand. The brain answers demands with growth. Ignore them and it sleeps. Respect them and it evolves. This habit seems small, but repeated daily, it reshapes awareness, memory, and energy, keeping the mind active instead of fading into comfortable repetition. Over time, that difference defines who you become. Habit 4. Learn a new skill. A language, an instrument, a physical skill. Not to be good, but to be bad again. Learning a new skill is one of the most direct ways to force the brain to rebuild itself. When you begin something unfamiliar, nothing works automatically. Your brain cannot rely on old shortcuts. It must slow down, pay attention, and create new patterns from zero. This is why adults avoid new skills. Being a beginner feels humiliating. You hesitate, you make mistakes, you sound wrong, you move awkwardly. Your brain dislikes this state because it cannot predict success. But this is exactly the state where growth happens. When you learn a new language, your brain struggles to hear, process, and produce unfamiliar sounds. When you learn an instrument, your fingers and mind disconnect. When you learn a physical skill, your balance fails. These failures are not signs of inability, they are signals that new neural connections are forming. Skill learning activates multiple brain regions at once. Memory, attention, coordination, emotion, and timing are all engaged. Few activities demand this level of total brain involvement. That is why skill learning protects against mental aging more than passive activities. The goal is not mastery. Mastery often returns comfort. The goal is exposure. Staying in the beginner phase forces adaptation. Each mistake forces correction. Each correction strengthens a new pathway. Over time, the brain becomes faster at learning itself. Children learn easily because they accept being bad. Adults resist learning because they fear looking incompetent. This fear silently shrinks the brain's capacity to adapt. When you choose to learn something new, you choose humility over ego. The brain responds with growth. This habit also rewires how you approach difficulty. You stop expecting instant results. You learn patience. You learn repetition. You learn that progress comes from showing up while feeling uncomfortable. These lessons transfer into every area of life. Learning a new skill also increases cognitive reserve. This is the brain's ability to compensate for damage, stress, or aging. A brain with more skills has more routes to solve problems. When one path weakens, another can activate. You do not need talent, you need consistency. 10 minutes a day is enough if the effort is real. Practice slowly, practice poorly, stay present. The brain does not measure quality, it measures challenge. Choose one skill, commit without pressure, accept being bad as the price of staying young. Each session reminds your brain that learning is not finished. As long as learning continues, decline slows. A brain that keeps learning refuses to settle. It stays curious, it stays flexible, it stays alive. Skill by skill, mistake by mistake, the brain rebuilds itself from the inside, proving that youth is not preserved by comfort, but created through continuous, deliberate learning. This is not about productivity or achievement. It is about identity. You become someone who learns instead of avoids, who grows instead of freezes. That identity alone keeps the brain active, resilient, and resistant to mental decline over time naturally. Habit 5. Memorize poems or songs. Memory is not a talent. It is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows only when it is used. If you stop memorizing, your memory does not stay the same. It weakens, slowly at first, then completely. In the past, people memorized naturally: songs, poems, stories, prayers, phone numbers, directions. The brain was trained to hold information because there was no external storage. Today, memory is outsourced. Phones remember for you, apps remind you, search engines think for you. Your brain adapts by doing less. This is not progress for the brain, it is surrender. When you memorize something, you force the brain to focus deeply. You repeat, you struggle, you retrieve words without help. This process strengthens neural connections responsible for recall, attention, and emotional regulation. Memorization is active thinking, not passive consumption. Many people say they have a bad memory. That is rarely true. What they have is an untrained memory, a muscle that has not been exercised in years. When a muscle is unused, it shrinks. The same rule applies here. Poems and songs are powerful tools because they combine rhythm, emotion, and structure. Rhythm creates patterns. Emotion creates meaning. Structure creates order. Together, they make memory stronger and longer lasting. This is why you remember songs from childhood even decades later. Memorizing also slows the mind down. In a world of speed, slowness is strength. You cannot memorize while distracted. You must be present. This trains sustained attention, one of the rarest mental abilities today. There is also a deeper effect. When you carry words inside your mind, they shape you. A poem changes how you think. A song changes how you feel. Memorized language becomes internal language. It influences decisions, emotions, and identity. Start small. Choose one short poem, one verse, or one meaningful quote. Read it out loud, write it by hand, repeat it daily. Test yourself without looking. Forgetting is part of the process. Each retrieval strengthens the pathway. Do not rush. This is not about speed. It is about ownership. When you can recall words without help, your confidence increases. You trust your mind again. Over time, memorization rebuilds cognitive endurance. You hold more information, you think more clearly, you feel mentally sharper. This is not nostalgia, it is neuroscience. A brain that memorizes stays active. A brain that never memorizes becomes dependent. If you want a strong mind, give it something to hold. Train memory daily, and it will return the favor by staying alive, sharp, and deeply connected to meaning. This habit also builds patience and discipline. Memorization teaches the brain to tolerate boredom, resist distraction, and stay with difficulty longer. These qualities protect thinking in every area of life. When memory is strong, learning accelerates. When memory is weak, everything feels harder. A trained memory creates independence, clarity, and inner stability. It is one of the simplest, oldest, and most reliable ways to keep the mind strong. Practice it consistently, and mental decline loses power over time permanently. Habits that make the brain fight. Habit 6. Do one hard thing every day. Comfort kills the mind. One hard thing a day tells your brain, we are still alive. The brain was not designed for endless ease. It was designed to solve problems, face uncertainty, and respond to pressure. When those signals disappear, the brain does not relax into wisdom, it collapses into laziness. Mental decline does not come from overload, it comes from underuse. Doing one hard thing every day is not about suffering for no reason. It is about sending a clear message to your brain that effort is still required. That message keeps neural systems active, alert, and responsive. Without it, the brain slowly turns everything into habit and reaction. A hard thing does not mean something extreme. It means something you want to avoid, something that creates resistance. Speaking when you want to stay silent, exercising when you want comfort, studying when you feel tired, saying no when it would be easier to agree. These moments feel small, but they are powerful. When you choose difficulty on purpose, the brain enters a state of focused engagement. Stress hormones rise slightly, attention sharpens, memory systems activate. This is healthy stress, the kind that strengthens instead of damages. The brain learns that pressure is survivable. Most people wait for motivation. That is a mistake. Motivation is the result, not the cause. Action under discomfort creates motivation after. When you complete something hard, your brain releases signals of reward tied to effort, not pleasure. This rewires how you relate to challenge. Doing one hard thing daily also trains emotional control. You learn to sit with discomfort without escaping. You stop panicking when things feel difficult. Over time, this reduces anxiety because the brain learns that difficulty does not equal danger. There's another effect most people miss. Daily difficulty breaks the illusion that life should be easy. That illusion makes people fragile. When reality becomes hard, they collapse. When difficulty is normal, resilience grows. This habit compounds. One hard thing becomes two. Two become routine. The brain becomes stronger, not because life became easier, but because the mind became capable. You stop needing perfect conditions to act. Hard things sharpen identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who does not avoid effort. That identity changes behavior automatically. You stop negotiating with weakness. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it costs you later. Difficulty feels bad in the moment, but it pays you back. This is the trade. You do not need to change your life in one day. You need one decision per day. Choose the harder option once. Let that choice remind your brain that it is still needed. A brain that faces daily challenge stays awake. A brain protected from effort slowly fades. One hard thing a day is enough to keep the mind sharp, resilient, and alive against time, comfort, and mental decay. Habit 7. Try to remember before you check. Every time you Google without trying, you teach your brain to quit. Struggle first, then check. Modern life has made remembering optional. A name slips away, you search. A fact feels unclear, you check. A word is missing, you look it up instantly. This feels efficient, but it is training your brain to stop working. Each time you skip the struggle, you send a message. Effort is unnecessary. The brain learns from behavior, not intention. When you reach for answers immediately, your brain adapts by reducing effort. It assumes information will always be provided externally. Over time, recall weakens, focus shortens, and confidence in your own thinking fades. Memory is built through retrieval, not exposure. Seeing information again does not strengthen memory. Trying to pull it out does. That effort, even when it fails, activates neural circuits responsible for learning. The struggle itself is the exercise. When you pause before checking, something important happens. Your brain searches. It scans connections. It tests pathways. This process strengthens existing links and highlights weak ones. Even if you cannot remember fully, the attempt prepares the brain to store the correct answer more deeply afterward. Immediate checking skips this entire process. It replaces learning with dependency. The brain stops investing energy because it is no longer required. Over time, this creates mental laziness that feels like aging but is actually disuse. Trying to remember also trains patience. You learn to sit with uncertainty without panic. This is critical because modern brains are overstimulated and intolerant of not knowing. The ability to pause, think, and tolerate confusion protects mental clarity. Start with simple rules. When you forget a name, wait 10 seconds. Close your eyes. Visualize the situation. Let the brain work. When you forget a word, describe it mentally before checking. When you forget a fact, guess first. Accuracy is less important than effort. This habit rebuilds trust between you and your mind. Each successful recall reinforces confidence. Each failed attempt still strengthens the learning system. Over time, memory becomes faster, not because you searched more, but because you practiced retrieving. There is also an emotional benefit. When you rely on your brain, you feel more grounded, less scattered, less dependent. The mind feels capable again. This habit does not reject tools, it simply restores order. Brain first, tools second. Struggle first, answer second. The sequence matters. In a world that rewards speed, slowing down to think is an advantage. People who retrieve before checking understand more deeply and remember longer. They think instead of react. Your brain will resist at first. It prefers the easy path. That resistance is the sign you are training correctly. Push gently but consistently. Struggle is not inefficiency, it is investment. Each attempt deposits strength into your memory system. Over days and weeks, the effect compounds. If you want a brain that remembers, you must let it work. Stop rescuing it from effort. Let it search. Let it fail. Then help it improve. This simple habit restores one of the most basic human abilities, remembering without permission from a screen. Habit 8. Brain writing, not brainstorming. Silence forces depth. The best ideas live after your mind goes blank. Most people believe good thinking happens when ideas move fast and voices fill the room. They call this brainstorming. Everyone talks, everyone reacts, ideas appear quickly, loudly, and confidently. But speed is not depth. Noise is not intelligence. Brainstorming rewards the first idea, not the best one. It favors people who speak fast, not people who think deeply. The brain stays on the surface because there is no time to pause, question, or explore. What feels productive is often just repetition of familiar thoughts. Brain writing is the opposite. It removes performance. It removes noise. It leaves you alone with a blank page in your own mind. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Silence exposes how shallow most thinking really is. Without external stimulation, the brain panics. You start writing easy ideas, obvious ideas, safe ideas. After a few minutes, they run out. Your mind goes empty. This is the moment most people stop. They assume they're done. But this is where real thinking begins. When the brain goes blank, it is not failing, it is switching levels. The surface layer is exhausted. To continue, the brain must dig deeper. This requires effort. It feels slow, it feels frustrating. That frustration is cognitive strain, and cognitive strain creates growth. In silence, the brain is forced to connect distant ideas. It cannot copy others. It cannot react. It must generate. This activates deeper neural networks associated with creativity, insights, and problem solving. These networks are rarely used in everyday life. Brain writing also strengthens focus. Writing without interruption trains sustained attention, one of the most valuable and endangered mental skills today. You learn to stay with the problem longer instead of escaping discomfort. Set simple rules. Choose one question or problem. Set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes. Write continuously. No editing, no judging, no stopping. If nothing comes, write that nothing is coming. Keep the pen moving. Stay inside the silence. Around the middle, resistance increases. The brain asks for distraction. This is the test. If you stay, something shifts. A new thought appears. It may feel strange or uncomfortable. That is often the valuable one. Brain writing also creates honesty. Without an audience, you stop lying to yourself. You write what you actually think, not what sounds good. This clarity is rare and powerful. Over time, this habit changes how you think outside writing. You become less reactive. You pause before speaking. You tolerate silence. Your ideas gain structure and depth. Most people fear silence because it removes stimulation, but stimulation keeps the brain shallow. Silence demands effort. Effort creates insight. The best ideas do not arrive when the mind is entertained. They arrive when the mind is forced to work. Brain writing is not about creativity for art. It is about training the brain to think independently again. In a loud world, silence is an advantage. Use it. Write through the blank space. That is where the mind becomes sharp, original, and alive again. Habit 9. Play strategy games. Easy games feed dopamine. Hard games build intelligence. Choose pain over pleasure. Most games today are designed to feel good, not to make you think. Bright colors, fast rewards, constant wins. You tap, you swipe, you collect points. Your brain receives small bursts of pleasure without effort. This feels fun, but it trains the mind to expect reward without work. Dopamine is not the enemy. Dopamine without effort is. When rewards arrive too easily, the brain loses tolerance for difficulty. Focus shortens. Patience disappears. Real thinking begins to feel uncomfortable, even painful. Strategy games work differently. They slow you down. They demand planning, memory, and restraint. You lose. You get stuck. You make mistakes and must analyze why. This discomfort is the price of intelligence. Games like chess, logic puzzles, word games, or complex planning games activate executive functions in the brain. These include working memory, attention control, and decision-making. These functions decline first with age and disuse. Strategy games train them directly. When you play a hard game, the brain must hold multiple possibilities in mind. It must predict consequences. It must resist impulsive moves. Each of these actions strengthens neural networks responsible for reasoning and self-control. Easy games do the opposite. They reward impulsive behavior. They train reaction, not reflection. Over time, this spills into real life. People become more impatient, more distracted, and less capable of deep thought. Choosing hard games retrains your relationship with effort. You learn that losing is part of progress. You learn to sit with frustration instead of escaping it. This mental endurance transfers beyond games into work, study, and conversation. At first, strategy games feel tiring. After 10 minutes, your head feels heavy. This is a good sign. The brain is working. Mental fatigue from effort is different from fatigue from overstimulation. One builds capacity, the other drains it. Set boundaries. Play for thinking, not escape. Choose games that punish mistakes and reward planning. Avoid games that never let you lose. Losing is feedback. Winning without effort is deception. This habit also rebuilds delayed gratification. You stop needing instant pleasure. You learn to invest effort for future reward. This skill protects against addiction, distraction, and impulsive decision-making. Strategy games also create humility. They reveal gaps in thinking. They show you where emotion overrides logic. This awareness is valuable. It strengthens emotional regulation and mental discipline. Choose pain over pleasure deliberately. Not always, intentionally. Replace one easy game session with a difficult one. Over time, your brain adapts. Thinking becomes easier. Focus lasts longer. Complexity feels manageable. A brain trained on strategy stays sharp. A brain trained on dopamine becomes restless. Games shape the mind you bring back into life. Choose games that make you better, not games that make time disappear. Habit 10. Teach what you learn. If you can't teach it, you don't own it. Teaching locks knowledge into your brain. Most people believe learning happens when they read, watch, or listen. They consume information, feel informed for a moment, and then move on. A day later, most of it is gone. This is not a memory problem. It is a processing problem. Information that is not used is not kept. Teaching changes everything. When you teach, your brain is forced to reorganize what you learned. It must turn messy thoughts into clear structure. It must choose words. It must connect ideas logically. This process transforms information from something you saw into something you own. Understanding feels passive. Teaching is active. When you explain an idea to someone else, gaps appear immediately. You notice what you don't fully understand. That discomfort is valuable. It tells your brain where to strengthen connections. Teaching exposes weakness so it can be corrected. This is why students who teach others remember more than students who only study. The brain treats teachable knowledge as important. It assumes information you share matters for survival and communication, so it stores it more deeply. Teaching also activates multiple brain systems at once. Memory, language, attention, and emotional regulation all work together. Few activities engage the brain this completely. That is why teaching protects against mental decline better than passive learning. You do not need to be an expert to teach. Waiting until you are perfect is an excuse. Teaching while learning is even more powerful. When you explain something simply, your brain simplifies it internally. Complexity becomes clarity. Teaching can be informal. Explain an idea to a friend, send a voice note, write a short message, speak to a mirror. The format does not matter. The act matters. The brain responds to explanation, not audience size. There is also an identity shift. When you teach, you stop seeing yourself as a consumer of knowledge and start seeing yourself as a source of it. This increases confidence and engagement. You pay more attention because you know you will need to explain later. Teaching also slows forgetting. Each explanation is a retrieval event. Retrieval strengthens memory. Repetition through teaching creates long-term retention without boring review. Many people feel like they are always learning but never changing. This is why. They collect ideas but never use them. Teaching forces use. Use creates change. Make this a rule. Every time you learn something new, teach one part of it within 24 hours. Not later, not when you feel ready, immediately. This timing is critical. It locks the information while it is fresh. At first, teaching will feel awkward. You may feel unsure. That uncertainty is the brain working. Over time, teaching becomes easier. Ideas become clearer. Thinking becomes sharper. A brain that teaches stays active. A brain that only consumes becomes passive. Knowledge either moves through you or fades away. Teaching keeps it alive. If you want to remember more, understand deeper, and think clearer, stop collecting information. Start passing it on. What you teach becomes part of you. Habits that save your focus. Habit 11. Stay away from screens daily. Your phone is training your brain to panic. Silence is not boring, it's medicine. Screens are not neutral tools. They shape how your brain reacts to the world. Every notification, vibration, and scroll trains your nervous system to stay alert, jumpy, and impatient. The brain begins to expect constant input, and when that input stops, discomfort appears. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. Not because silence is empty, but because your brain has been conditioned to fear it. When the screen is gone, the mind has nothing to grab, and anxiety rises. That anxiety is withdrawal, not boredom. Daily screen exposure fragments attention. You switch tasks, apps, and thoughts hundreds of times a day. The brain adapts by becoming reactive instead of reflective. Focus shortens, memory weakens. Deep thinking becomes exhausting. Staying away from screens each day reverses this pattern. When stimulation drops, the brain is forced to settle. At first, this feels restless. The mind searches for noise. If you stay, something shifts. Breathing slows, thoughts lengthen, awareness deepens. Silence allows the default mode network to activate. This network is responsible for integration, insight, and emotional regulation. It only turns on when external input decreases. Screens keep it suppressed. Silence lets it work. This habit is not about rejecting technology. It is about restoring balance. When screens dominate every moment, the brain never rests. Rest is not sleep alone. Rest is mental stillness while awake. Start small. 30 minutes without screens. No phone, no music, no background noise. Sit, walk, or write. Let the brain complain. That complaint is part of the reset. Over time, tolerance for silence increases. Focus improves. Anxiety reduces. You become less reactive to external triggers. The brain learns that it does not need constant stimulation to feel safe. There is also a memory benefit. When the brain is not flooded with information, it consolidates what it already knows. This is why insights often appear in quiet moments. Silence connects ideas that noise keeps separate. Screens reward speed. Silence rewards depth. Speed feels productive but leaves you empty. Depth feels slow but leaves you clear. Staying away from screens daily trains emotional resilience. You stop reaching for distraction every time discomfort appears. You learn to sit with thoughts instead of escaping them. This strengthens self-control. Your phone trains panic by keeping the brain on edge. Silence trains stability by reminding the brain that nothing is wrong. One state exhausts you, the other heals you. This habit protects attention, memory, and emotional balance. In a loud world, choosing silence is an act of intelligence. Use screens intentionally, then step away. Let silence do its work. The brain heals not through more input, but through space. Practice this daily, without excuses, and notice how clarity returns, focus stabilizes, and thinking slows down. Silence does not steal life, it gives it back, one quiet moment at a time, rebuilding strength, patience, awareness, and control from the inside, where real mental health has always lived, quietly and steadily. Habit 12. Walk alone without your phone. Nature resets the nervous system. Your brain remembers who it is when noise disappears. Walking alone without your phone removes constant signals and returns your mind to a natural rhythm of awareness, breathing, and attention that modern life slowly erases. This reset is immediate and deeply biological, not optional healing. When you walk with your phone, your body moves, but your brain stays trapped elsewhere. Notifications keep your nervous system alert, scanning for threats, rewards, and reactions. This constant vigilance exhausts the brain and prevents true mental recovery during movement. Walking moments meant for restoration and awareness instead of peace. Walking alone in nature sends a different signal to the brain. Sounds are slower, patterns are softer, and movement is steady. This tells the nervous system there is no emergency, allowing stress hormones to drop and mental clarity to return gradually without effort, pressure, screens, noise, urgency, distraction, overload, chaos. Being alone while walking is important. Conversation and content keep the brain performing. Solitude removes performance. Without an audience, your thoughts slow down, reorganize, and surface naturally, revealing worries, ideas, and emotions that noise normally suppresses during daily movement outside screens and obligations imposed by digital life systems constantly today. This habit rebuilds attention by letting it rest instead of forcing it. Focus returns not through effort, but through absence of stimulation. Walking becomes meditation in motion, training patience, presence, and awareness without instructions or techniques, apps, guides, metrics, goals, timers, prompts, rewards, pressure, expectations, comparison, noise, habits daily imposed. At first, walking without your phone feels uncomfortable. The urge to check appears quickly. This urge is not curiosity, it is dependency. Staying with that discomfort teaches the brain that silence is safe and survivable without external input, validation, stimulation, reassurance, noise, distraction, comfort, escape, habits learned digitally, daily, recently. Nature also restores perspective. Trees, sky, wind, and distance remind the brain that problems are smaller than they feel. This reduces emotional reactivity and improves decision-making by calming threat detection systems responsible for anxiety, rumination, panic, urgency, overload, and chronic stress responses triggered by screens constantly today online environments. Walking without a phone also strengthens memory. When the brain is not flooded, it begins consolidating experiences. Thoughts connect, insights appear. This is why solutions often arrive during quiet walks, where attention is relaxed, open, grounded, embodied, and uninterrupted by artificial stimuli designed to capture focus endlessly online today everywhere. This habit reconnects body and mind. Movement anchors thought, breath regulates emotion. Together, they restore a sense of internal stability lost in constant digital engagement and mental fragmentation caused by multitasking, notifications, information overload, comparison, speed, urgency, distraction, habits learned slowly over years of screen exposure everywhere daily now. Walking alone without your phone is not exercise for fitness, it is exercise for sanity. Do it daily. Let silence work. The brain heals when it remembers how to be alone, attentive, and alive again, without noise, pressure, stimulation, distraction, comparison, urgency, screens, habits controlling modern life constantly today, everywhere. Habit 13. Talk deeply, not constantly. Small talk keeps the brain asleep. Truth wakes it up. Depth creates memory. Most conversations today are filled with noise, not meaning. Words move quickly, but nothing stays. People talk constantly, yet feel disconnected. The brain listens, responds, and forgets because nothing important is happening. No emotion, no risk, no depth. Small talk has a function. It's smooth social interaction. It avoids tension. But when it becomes the default mode of communication, it starves the brain. Repeating the same questions, the same jokes, the same surface reactions trains the mind to stay shallow. Shallow input produces shallow memory. The brain remembers what matters. It remembers emotion, vulnerability, and meaning. When a conversation touches something real, fear, regret, hope, doubt, the brain wakes up. Attention sharpens, memory systems activate. You don't forget those conversations because they engage more than language, they engage identity. Talking deeply requires courage. It slows the conversation down. It creates silence. It risks discomfort. This is why most people avoid it. Depth removes the mask. It forces honesty, both in speaking and listening. The brain treats this as important information. When you ask deeper questions, the brain shifts gears. It stops reacting and starts processing. It listens more carefully. It analyzes tone, emotion, and meaning. This activates higher cognitive and emotional networks that rarely engage during casual talk. Depth also strengthens connection. When someone shares something real, your brain releases chemicals associated with trust and bonding. These emotional markers tag the memory as significant. That is why you remember deep conversations for years, but forget dozens of casual ones in a day. Talking deeply does not mean talking constantly. In fact, silence is often required. Silence allows thought to form. It allows meaning to settle. When you rush to fill every gap with words, you prevent depth from appearing. This habit also trains emotional intelligence. You learn to read subtle cues. You learn to tolerate silence. You learn to stay present without distraction. These skills protect the brain against social anxieties and emotional numbness. Depth does not require dramatic confessions. It requires intention. Ask questions you actually care about. Answer honestly, not politely. Speak slower. Listen longer. Allow pauses. Let the conversation breathe. Over time, this habit changes how the brain processes relationships. People become individuals again, not background noise. Interactions feel energizing instead of draining. Loneliness decreases, not because you talk more, but because you connect better. There is also a memory benefit. The brain records meaningful social experiences as reference points. These memories create a sense of continuity and identity. Without them, life feels blurred and repetitive. Constant talking creates exhaustion. Deep talking creates clarity. One meaningful conversation can activate the brain more than hours of surface interaction. Choose depth deliberately, not with everyone, not all the time, but regularly. Let truth enter the room. Let silence exist. Let meaning form. A brain fed with truth stays awake. A brain fed with noise falls asleep. Depth is not a luxury. It is a requirement for a mind that wants to stay alive, connected, and capable of real memory in a loud, distracted world. Habit 14. Sleep in darkness and silence. Sleep is brain repair. Light and noise interrupt that repair. Protect your sleep like your life. Sleep is not passive rest, it is active maintenance. While your body lies still, your brain cleans itself, repairs memory, resets emotion, and strengthens learning pathways. This work only happens when sleep is deep, uninterrupted, and dark. Without darkness and silence, the brain cannot finish its most important job. Light is a signal. Even small amounts tell the brain it is daytime. Screens, lamps, streetlights, notifications all confuse the internal clock. When light reaches the eyes at night, sleep becomes shallow. The brain stays half awake, alert for danger, unable to fully recover. You may sleep for hours, but the quality is broken. Noise creates the same damage. The brain never fully shuts down when sound is present. It keeps monitoring the environment. Each sound creates micro-awakenings you do not remember, but your brain does. These interruptions prevent deep sleep stages where memory consolidation and emotional regulation occur. Over time, poor sleep changes the brain. Focus weakens, mood becomes unstable, memory fades faster. You feel older, heavier, slower. Many people blame stress or age, but the real cause is chronic sleep disruption. Darkness tells the brain it is safe to repair. Silence tells it nothing requires attention. Together, they allow the nervous system to drop into recovery mode. This is not luxury, This is biological necessity. Protecting sleep means changing priorities. Phones do not belong near the bed. Notifications do not deserve access to your nervous system at night. Entertainment does not matter more than repair. These boundaries feel extreme only because sleep deprivation has become normal. Create a cave, block light completely, use blackout curtains or an eye mask, remove glowing devices, turn off indicator lights. Make silence real. Use earplugs or remove noise sources. Let the room signal safety and stillness. Consistency matters. Going to bed at similar times trains the brain to enter repair faster. Late nights and irregular schedules confuse hormonal rhythms. The brain adapts by staying alert longer, reducing recovery. Deep sleep is when the brain clears waste proteins linked to cognitive decline. It is when memories move from short-term storage into long-term networks. It is when emotional experiences are processed and softened. Skip this, and the brain carries unfinished work into the next day. Protecting sleep is an act of intelligence. It is choosing long-term clarity over short-term stimulation. It is understanding that discipline at night creates strength during the day. Sleep is not weakness, it is strategy. When you sleep deeply, you wake mentally younger. When you sleep poorly, no habit can fully compensate. If you want a strong brain, start at night. Darkness, silence, consistency. Treat sleep like oxygen. Without it, everything else slowly fails. Strong sleep builds strong thinking, emotional balance, and long-term resilience, giving the brain space to heal, organize, and prepare for challenges that demand clarity, patience, focus, and intelligent response tomorrow under pressure and uncertainty daily. Habit 15. Cold showers. Cold is not punishment. It is control. If you can calm your body in panic, you can control your mind. A cold shower shocks the nervous system into alertness. The body reacts instantly. Breath tightens, heart rate jumps. Every instinct screams to escape. This moment is not about temperature. It is about command. When cold hits, the body enters stress. The brain must decide, panic or control. If you step out immediately, the brain learns one rule. Discomfort equals danger. Escape is safety. But if you stay, breathe, and relax inside the shock, something powerful happens. The brain learns that discomfort is survivable. Cold exposure trains the stress response. You practice calming yourself under pressure in a controlled environment. This rewires how the brain reacts to difficulty outside the shower. Anxiety weakens, emotional reactivity drops, focus sharpens. You stop overreacting because the brain has learned regulation. Cold showers also increase alertness chemicals that improve attention and mood. But the real benefit is psychological. You prove to yourself daily that you can face discomfort and remain in control. That identity carries into work, relationships, and challenges. You do not need long exposure. 30 seconds is enough. Start warm, then switch to cold. Breathe slowly. Stay present. Let the panic rise and fall without running. This is mental training disguised as hygiene. A controlled body creates a controlled mind. Intermittent fasting works on a similar principle. A full stomach creates a slow brain. Hunger sharpens focus. Your ancestors knew this. Science confirms it. When food is always available, the brain shifts energy toward digestion. Attention drops. Mental clarity fades. Hunger sends a different signal. The body enters alert mode. Focus improves. Thinking becomes sharper. Memory retrieval accelerates. This is not starvation. It is controlled absence. Fasting activates brain chemicals that support learning, adaptability, and resilience. The brain becomes efficient because resources are limited. Scarcity forces precision. This is how humans survived for thousands of years. Modern life removed hunger entirely. Constant snacking keeps the brain sedated. Intermittent fasting reintroduces a natural rhythm the brain understands. Eat within a limited window, allow the body to rest from digestion, let the brain work without competition. Discomfort appears first. Hunger, irritation, restlessness. Stay with it. These signals fade. Clarity follows. The brain learns that it does not need constant feeding to function. Cold showers and fasting share one rule. Voluntary discomfort builds control. When discomfort is chosen, not forced, the brain adapts instead of panics. These habits are not about toughness, they are about leadership. You lead your nervous system instead of being controlled by it. That leadership keeps the brain young. Comfort weakens regulation. Controlled stress strengthens it. If you can stay calm in cold water and think clearly while hungry, daily stress loses its power. Your body trains your brain. Use it wisely. These are not nice habits. They are uncomfortable. They are painful. That is why they work. They demand effort when your brain wants ease. They demand presence when your mind wants escape. Most people will not choose this path. Most people will keep scrolling, forgetting, reacting, distracting themselves until days blur into years. Their minds will grow quieter, weaker, softer, without them ever noticing the moment it happened. But now you know, and knowledge creates responsibility. You can ignore this and slowly lose your edge, your focus, your memory, your sense of control. Or you can fight. Fighting does not mean aggression. It means discipline. It means choosing effort over comfort, clarity over noise, growth over convenience. It means protecting your brain the same way you would protect your future. Train it, stress it, challenge it, not occasionally, daily. Because a brain that is not challenged begins to decay, and no one else will do this work for you. There will be days you resist, days you fail, days you choose comfort. That does not matter. What matters is identity. Are you the kind of person who notices decline and does nothing, or the kind who responds? Strong minds are built quietly, in cold water, in silence, in effort, in repetition, not in motivation, not in inspiration, in action. This channel is not here to entertain you. Entertainment numbs. We are here to sharpen you, to remind you what focus feels like, what clarity feels like, what control feels like. If this video challenged you, stay. If it made you uncomfortable, good. That means it worked. Subscribe if you are done wasting time. Subscribe if you are ready to train your mind instead of escaping it. This is your decision, made today, not later. Stay sharp, stay awake, stay alive.